western attack and on the eastern attack, and is just content keeping Steve on his heels and making Steve react to how he moves. Once again, he just goes in. He has all of these different groupings hotkeyed, and you just move back and forth to the different hotkeys, and you move in, you make an attack, you move in, you make an attack. You try not to lose forces. I can't stress that enough. You can't win these battles and these games by going in and going head-on against this force. You need to try and find a way like here where he can come in and he will just be able to, in one shot, do so much damage to those villagers. And he likely took a few out there. There they go, a few out, and that ox cart goes down, which will delay the timing. As in the south, he's doing the similar kind of move, sweeping down, trying to get at the gold. And this is just getting to be more and more of a precarious situation as StevenHolt is going to be dropping down a few gardens here to help increase his speed of training and research, as theMistaa is just pecking away at these defenses and forcing iamSoldier to respond every time. Now he's going to try and interfere with the creation of this garden. And at the same time, he's going to move in on the east and on the north and completely split the troops of Steve so that he can react. And it is tough to tell who is winning this battle at the moment. It seems theMistaa's forces are dropping quite a bit. There we go. theMistaa is going to be forced to retreat here. And StevenHolt seemed to have done a good job holding this off, pushing off, almost completely destroying this northern force. The eastern force is not looking very good, and the western force is the same way, only mainly slingers. So now we are likely going to see some form of counterattack here by StevenHolt, who is going to be pushing up the middle of the map into a force of slingers here. So slingers and spearmen, it appears. Yet Spearman Champion are going to go in the front lines taking on those shield bears and are now going to be completely surrounded by slingers in the rear and slingers in the front, but he has been able to rout this eastern side and is now spinning around to the western side, trying to take out more and more of these slingers. And very even battle shaping up as StevenHolt was able to come back, even take the population lead there, as he still is a little bit in deficit of the villagers. But now we see theMistaa is taking this group of slingers and attacking with them, while StevenHolt is attacking in the north. theMistaa is now going and trying to get at the ox carts in the south. Not too much defense left at home for StevenHolt, who is now on the full offensive, trying to bring down this group of slingers here with his own slingers, except he has a good amount of these shield bears thrown in to suck up some of that DPS. They don't do much damage, as you'll see, but at the same time, they are able to suck up so much damage. And it still, though, looks like theMistaa, having the defenses at his base, was able to push away that attack. And at the same time, StevenHolt was able to do the same thing. But in that, theMistaa is going to turn around and expand off of this successful defense. And let's see if StevenHolt is going to be in the same boat. He's trying to rebuild his population. They still have very similar populations at the moment, but it's just a matter of who is going to be able to rebuild their economy the fastest, where it looks as though theMistaa is upgrading to that third age. He has keeping his resources very low, and same with StevenHolt. His gold is floating a little bit. There it goes down now. So both these players playing a very even similar style of play. Back and forth we go to attacks and to counterattacks. Now theMistaa is conducting or building up his forces here in the west while he waits for this third age upgrade, while Steve is moving his troops a little bit to the west as well, but he's defending off this berry patch because he's in desperate need of that food there. And you see a few farms going down as theMistaa is trying on a long mission around the base of StevenHolt. He's going to probably come in down the south here, and he actually might get lucky and run into this base, this little caravan of gold miners if he sees it. he did see it just for a second, and that was enough for him to turn and be able to attack. It was a good reaction time, though, by StevenHolt, who kept those villagers away, and even the ox cart didn't miss a beat. They went to there, and then they didn't stop, and they just kept going, and that ended up saving their lives. This force for the Mistaa is going to park it down here in the south side of the base, while StevenHolt is parked in the north side of his base, because the Mistaa has a few slingers up here, as well as he is building a storehouse down here on this wood line here, the Mistaa is, which is an interesting location for that. But we're seeing this group for the Mistaa just traveling all the way around the base. Now we have an engagement going on here where the Mistaa is trying to build a fortress, construct a fortress in the middle of the map, but it is not going to go down. StevenHolt was right on top of that building, and now the main part of his force is here. The problem is the Mistaa has a force in the southern part of his base, as well as the Mistaa having a good amount of defenses in the north. Now the Mistaa is sitting inside of the town center of StevenHolt, and StevenHolt's defenses are all the way on the other side of the map. The Mistaa is splitting off troops, chasing down this caravan while just completely harassing the inside of the base. At the same time, StevenHolt is knocking on the front door of the Mistaa, and the Mistaa is trying desperately with the remainder of his troops that aren't attacking to defend this full force attack. He is microing back a little bit, so as he takes losses, he can reinforce that position. As you see, he is keeping his population maxed out there at the 160, and that is enabling him to keep trying to handle this position, as well as down south chasing away and chasing around the economy of StevenHolt, trying to keep track of it all the best that I can. Now the Mistaa is being pushed further and further back into his base so he can buy time. A barracks is going to go down or not go down. One more shot, it would have went down. There we go. Now they're going to take it down. But the Mistaa seems to have complete control of this game, and StevenHolt needs to do something to take it back. Here, he's pushing on the front door, and he's starting to do a substantial damage as we see a fortress is being created at home by the Mistaa, which will aid substantially in dealing with this threat at home. As you see, slingers are back trying to deal with all of the shield bearers and slingers of StevenHolt. Now that fortress was able to get up, it's going to force a shift for Steve to move all the way to the right, and during that entire time he's taking damage while he repositions his troops. We see a group of 6 slingers down here, 5 slingers down here, just poking, throwing rocks at the stables. Not really doing a lot. It just ends up making it so as soon as something comes out of that building, it is killed. Now we see Steve has lost this battle pretty much, as the Mistaa is just about able to handle this threat and is now going to be looking at retreating, although it looks as though he's trying to hold off for just enough time so he can get as much of this gold as he can. He should turn around and hoof it, though, at this point. It might be a little bit of a battle for this forward gold position. That was really, really risky of a play by StevenHolt, but he is still holding on. That is one of the benefits of having these ox carts. Even though you saw the one go down, you're able to move it around so much. You can go in, you can take gold, you can then move back away onto another one, even though StevenHolt seems to be holding this position fairly well. You see the populations. The Mistaa has 102 to StevenHolt's 91. The reinforcements are coming in just the nick of time for StevenHolt so he can hold this front line as long as he can. It's just a matter. He's now even building a farm out here, very confident that he will be able to hold this position very close to the Mistaa's front door. And now we see 80 population to 88 population, as both of these players are frantically trying to hold this position in front of the Mistaa's base. It is very pivotal for the Mistaa to hold it because it is so close to his front door. If StevenHolt can get a fortress up right here, that would be a scary move. And at the same time, Steve back at his base, it's